thousands of US aircraft flew hazardous missions from British-ruled India into China. These aircraft flew over the Himalayas, and their missions were called the Hump missions. 650 US aircraft crashed while flying these hazardous missions, killing thousands of aircrew. Now, India and the United States have collaborated on a museum in Arunachal Pradesh. We leave you with this interview my colleague Aasheesh Sharma did with the museum director, Oken Tayeng. Thanks for watching.
So, from our perspective, as of today, we know about close to 30 aircrafts all over Arunachal from east to west. So when the war was going on in the Second World War in the 40s, our parents' generation, they'll see these planes fly over their head, day in and day out, and lots of them crashed. Hunters will see these planes. Sometimes, human bodies were found, so things like that. So without any understanding the background of the whole thing, and it was a very, very tragic affair. Lots of young people died in the war. So in a way, it's closer for the families, who lost their relatives in the war, some men of whom they had no idea where they were, where the bodies and where the remains were for the last 60 years. And on our part, we have some answers of, where these planes came from and what was the story about the gravity of the whole thing. So this basically is the, general outline of this museum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And as the director of the museum, please tell us about the kind of efforts that you have put in to put together the museum and the exhibits.
Yeah, it's lots of hard work, we had to, to make a museum, you need some substantial artifacts. So what we have in the museum is, lots of parts and remains from these crash planes. And some places we have to hike about 6 to 7 days, going up to 13 to 14, 15,000 feet on the snow line in completely uncharted, wilderness. People don't go there, it's just lying there. The only way we know is when hunters encounter them. So, it's lots of hard work, even to bring back. We have some things like machine guns, which weigh at least 50 kilograms. So I had my boys lugging it back from the jungle, trekking 4 or 5 days. So lots and lots of hard work. But, having understood what it means from a humanitarian perspective, the closer the family needs from this kind of memorial. So, that's motivates, or at least we can explain to the boys that, what it all means, all their hard work.
So the museum is called the Hump. So
Yeah,
why is it called the Hump, and why was it so difficult?
Well, you look up on history of the Second World War, basically when they were flying from Assam to China, there was this big mountain ranges, right? The Himalayas, the highest being Namche Barwa at 25,000 feet and, a few more. So that was the hump, basically. So when they fly over that mountain, they over the hump. So that's the background of the name.
Now, Ambassador Garcetti is the third American ambassador to visit the Arunachal Pradesh. And you mentioned the closure. So tell us, what did he say about the museum? And how do such visits bolster bilateral ties between India and America?
Yeah, I think definitely what draws people like the ambassadors and, general visitors from outside is our rich culture and pristine nature. The first thing Ambassador remarked when we got here is the fresh air, a break from the kind of air he's been breathing in Delhi. So that's one thing. But for them, it's in lots of ways, this museum has lots to do with Americans. Most of the airmen were Americans, and the war itself, the bigger part was played by Americans. So, most of the pilots and people who lost their lives were Americans. So they understand it's very, very important for them as well. And also, in a tragic way, we made this connection. Like, for example, the family members of some of those dead lost airmen. They're sending in photographs from those times, from the 40s of our region, from some of our villages. So it's like a mystery being open in some ways. So it's very, very fascinating. That's our culture and our history is connected with this incident.
Right. So the operation itself, the Americans called it one of the biggest historical transport achievements of the World War II. And why was it so difficult? You mentioned the Hump was one of the reasons, the scale and the terrain. Why was it such a difficult operation for Allied troops?
Yeah, I mean, it was even bigger than some of the other aerial operations in history. So you think about the magnitude of it, they lost close to 700 planes and they lost, almost 2,000 airmen in the operation. So, and it's young men having come such a long, long way from home and, lost their lives here. So it was really a really big event, and all kind of strategy, all kind of resources were put in, and other thing was the weather, the kind of weather we have here, tropical thunderstorm is the worst kind of weather for flying. So the operation were mostly in June, July, and if they fly too close to Myanmar, they would encounter the Japanese, with their mosquito small fighters. So sometimes they would deliberately fly when the weather is bad. They would circle up to 15,000 feet and then go instruments. So, and the kind of navigational system those days was nothing like what we have now. So it's a very, very dangerous and vulnerable operation.
News9 Plus. Download now.